All right, welcome to Agile Conversations. My name is Patty. I'm your host. Thank you all for coming here. Welcome to the new folks, and of course, welcome to those who are returning. A little bit about this meetup. So the mission of this meetup is to build a diverse, inclusive community of Agile professionals. So not just Scrum Masters, not just Agile coaches, but all those that are involved in an Agile organization. And what we want to do is support people in the beginning, absolutely, but help keep people on their Agile journey because it does get difficult at times and we need the support of each other. I also want to give people a voice, a platform to share their stories, specifically of how they got to where they are today, including those who are non-technical, didn't start out with software development, but also how did you overcome those career obstacles in order to inspire people to take the same action? And of course, provide an opportunity to work on soft skills to further your Agile career. So whether it's, turning on your camera and saying hello for the first time scares you, whether it's raising your hand and asking a question to the group that scares you, we want to create a safe space for you to put yourself on camera and work on those soft skills that are needed for this role. So please join our LinkedIn community. We are over 2,800 people now. It's called Agile Conversations. You can find us there, and that will give you updates about this meetup. So I'm Patty. I'm the founder of this meetup. I also have my own consulting firm, mostly focusing on Scrum Master and Scrum Master development. But I also go into organizations and speak about Agile and Scrum in general. And of course, Jamie mentioned Scrum Master of the Universe will be a place that I'm speaking at in the coming months. So our backlog for tonight, we are in the welcome introduction portion. As I mentioned, Tom Mullins, who's here in the audience, is going to be speaking to us in 2 weeks, June 13th, on product ownership and his journey from being a welder, working in the steel industry, which I did not know, Tom, but that non-traditional path that has led him here to where he is today as a product owner. But all the people that are in this room today are here to hear from Richard. So we are going to stop sharing the screen and we are going to get going with our conversation. As I always mention to people, feel free to turn your cameras off. This is going to start out kind of interview-ish, but then we're going to eventually just start talking about all sorts of different random things. And you're here just as a fly on the wall to listen. And then at the end, we'll have some questions for Richard, because I'm sure that different things will come up for folks. So I have to ask, Richard, are you ready?
Yes. As ready as I'm going to be.
All right. All right. So you folks know where we always start. I ask the guests to introduce themselves and tell them a little bit about what their current role is. Take it away.
All right. So my name, Richard Samela. I am currently the Associate Director of Product Management for IQVIA. I work for their DMD division on a product called AIM XR. A lot of you probably are familiar with those ads that follow you around everywhere you go when you search on something or read something. We do very similar, except it's for healthcare providers. So when a healthcare provider visits a network of our sites and starts researching things, our job is to make sure that the right pharmaceutical company or the right information gets to that healthcare provider so they can provide better outcomes for their patients.
Excellent. Well, welcome, Richard. And, as everyone knows, we will talk about your career journey to how you got to be here today. But what I do like to ask people that come onto this is, how do we know each other? Just so people have some context.
The magic of LinkedIn, right? So, a while ago when I was unemployed, I was posting a lot on LinkedIn, commenting a lot on LinkedIn. And Patty's, because I was commenting about Agile and Scrum and writing about Agile and Scrum, it was only natural that Patty's work started showing up in my feed, and we started having back and forth conversations in the comments. and got started talking more and more, especially back in January when she was working on getting a training program together.
Yeah.
And that conversation has continued to now. So
And here we are, right, live on a call, um, talking in front of everyone. So what we can't miss from your LinkedIn is your cat. So we have to bring out the cat. Introduce us to your cat.
Yes, luckily she's
Including,
still right here.
including its name, because we don't know.
She doesn't really want to be on camera right now, but that is Ella. She's actually my wife's cat. We adopted her from a colleague at my former workplace who couldn't take care of her anymore. And I couldn't let her go homeless. She was just too cute, too sweet. We adopted her. She spends most of her day with my wife, but if I'm taking a picture of myself, she's the biggest photo bomber out there. If I'm in a meeting, she of course wants to be walking in front of the screen, and I'm her favorite cat tree.
I think, and the reason I bring that up is because of your selfies, right, with your cat. When you start, and that's, I think, how I noticed you, right? Because we always talk about the brand that we build on LinkedIn, whether it's intentional or not. You would have these photos with your cat, and that's how I kind of started following you and reading your content and learning about you. And it was interesting. A couple of weeks ago, you posted a photo of a dog, and I'm like, Richard, you have a dog? What? And what was your comment back to me? Because I thought this is very interesting.
I said, yeah, I've got 2 cats, a dog, a wife, and a kid.
Right. So I guess the point being is, right, we, whether it's intentional or not, we create these brands for ourselves. We put ourselves into these boxes, and people think that's all we are, right? But thank you for posting something else, because now we realize there's more to you than just a cat.
Yes.
um, but anyway, we'll get into LinkedIn and how you use that to find your role in a little bit. But I want to kind of back up to the beginning of just like general definitions for those of us that are new to Agile, Scrum, or product management. Can you give us a high level about what product management is?
Yeah. So, right, if you read up about product management, one of the biggest things you're going to hear is the CEO of the product. And don't believe it, because that's not what you are. You are not a CEO, right? It's not your actual product. You don't deal with the budget. You don't deal with anything. What you really need to do, and what you really need to be a special at, is listening to your customers, understanding your customers' needs, and translating that into something that's actionable by your company. That's the magic sauce for being a product manager.
And it's kind of like the Scrum Master accountability. It sounds like it's so darn easy. You just show up, you talk to people, and then you turn and tell other people to build this software. And it's not quite that easy. I like how you talked about how there's this misconception that it's a mini CEO, because as I mentioned to you, and I posted that on LinkedIn last week, that's what I saw out there when I was watching videos on product management. But having owned a business, I know that the roles are two completely different things. There's a different level of accountability when you own a business or you are a CEO of a business versus you're a product manager.
Right.
And as an Agile coach now, I see a lot of job descriptions, as well as I go into companies and I see people talking about, we need to stop doing projects, we need to convert to products. So what's the difference between product management and project management?
So when people talk about project management and projects, they're talking about a defined end of something, right? You lay out, your deliverables, your timeline, and you work to that, and then you're done. But in reality, in this day and age where everything is digital and things are changing, you're never really done with something. A product is always evolving. Where project management, it's just, right, we need our Gantt chart we need our deliverables, we need our milestones, we finish it, we move on to something else. Product management, this is our first deliverable that we're going to give to a customer, get some feedback, refine it, do it again, get some feedback, refine it, and it's that full evolution of a product.
Yeah, and even though I'm not a huge video game fan, that's one of the easiest examples that I can point to. Back when we were growing up, which I guess was a while ago, right? We had the video cartridges, right? And you played the game, you finished it, and then you have to go buy another one. Now video games are endless.
Mhm.
And you can talk about the pluses and minuses of that, but that's a really great way to think about it, right? There's always updates like World of Warcraft, or I play Candy Crush. Um, yes, I'm going to admit that, but it's never ending, right? Um, so thank you for explaining that, because I think we go into organizations and they want to be product focused, and maybe we are working towards that, but there's still a lot of project management going
Yeah.
on out there. And I think when you work for a large corporation, it's hard not to still have some of those habits. So we're doing our best. Um, Here's another question for you. So, and I know we talked about this and you were kind of like, I don't know, it depends, right? The typical Agile coach answer. What is the difference between a product manager and a product owner?
You're going to get a different job description with every company that you go to. Right. Some places, right? When I was looking for work, reading through job descriptions, product owner, product manager, project manager, program manager, almost used interchangeably. What I found works best is your product manager is your outward facing role on a Scrum team. They're the ones who are, talking to the end users, the customers, the marketing team, senior leadership team, and really finding out what the needs are in the marketplace and what problem we're trying to solve for. Whereas the product owner is taking that and actually defining it and working with the technical people to be able to break that down into things that those technical people can actually deliver on. There's that, the true definition, I have no idea, but those are the separations that I found work the best.
Right. And it's like, it's the same for Scrum Master. It's the same, you read the job titles on job descriptions and it becomes very confusing. So it's important to look at what are they expecting you to do, and then you can assign your own job title to it,
Yeah.
right? But it does vary from company to company, and sometimes, especially when you're new, and I still consider myself new to software development. I've only been kind of involved for like 5, 6, 7 years, but you go into a company and they do things differently and they have different words, and you think, wait, do I not know my stuff? Do I not know? And then, this makes us feel better that it really is just a matter of interpretation on the part of the company. So we do know how to do our jobs, right? Because sometimes you don't want to ask. You feel dumb raising your hand, and you don't want people to think you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah,
So, and that's some of the imposter syndrome, right?
it is.
So, I want to like back up and talk about, where did you start your career journey? Because you weren't always a product manager.
Nope. Nope. So I actually started my career as a software developer. So the first 15 years of my career was the guy writing code, front end code, back end code, putting it all together. And then I was working in a place where we didn't really have project management, but we needed it. So I started to learn some of those project management skills. When I left that job, I took a job that was supposed to be a technical project manager role. But as I got into it, I was like, there's nothing about this role that is project management. When my boss left and a new one came in, she's like, you're right, this is not project management. You're doing product management. And so that's how I very quickly changed from developer to project manager to product manager. Went and did the full Agile training so that I could learn things. Of course, they sent me to Scrum Master certification because that was really all there was back then. Right, if you needed any Agile certification, that was it. And I ended up taking a role as a Scrum Master for a while. And then I went to another place and they wanted a Scrum Master, but actually what they really wanted was an Agile coach to bring about an Agile transformation into the hardware space, of which they didn't actually want to do Agile because it was hardware. And that lasted a few years of banging my head against the wall to where I am now, which is back to being a product manager in a place that actually understands how product managers need to work and give them the tools they need to do it. It's actually a very similar role to one that I had when I first took on that product management role, because the company I'm working for now was one of our vendors. And the product that I'm managing, I actually used V1 of that product. So I actually had, before even getting this role, I had 8 years of experience really understanding the nuances of the product that I'm just now getting to be the product manager for. And the best part about it is the roadmap that I had in 2017 is the roadmap that I'm getting to execute now in 2023.
It's amazing, like how you're in all of our careers just have these twists and turns. First of all, I didn't know you were a Scrum Master at some point. A lot of people will always say, well, how do I land these roles if I don't have experience? Nobody will hire me if I don't have experience doing the thing. And kind of like listening to your story, it's like you kind of just fall into it, right? And if you got into project management and you really loved it, you take that and run with it. Or, whatever role you end up, you raise your hand for things and then you end up going down a different path. And I think it's to be all like woo woo, it's about like trusting the universe that something's going to unfold in front of you. Which kind of brings me to my next question, because you kind of touched upon it a little bit. When we first initially met, you were unemployed and you were struggling to find a job. Can you tell us about that point in your life, like what you were thinking, what you were feeling, but also in talking like a couple of weeks ago, you took your product management skills and you applied it to your job search.
Yes.
And I was, first of all, amazed, like, of course that makes sense. But when you hear about people walking the walk, this is exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about that piece of your life?
Yeah, so there was a good 5 years from when I was last a product manager to where I am a product manager now. Right, I had a lot of Scrum Master experience and Agile coaching experience within there. But when I made myself irrelevant at my last company by, coming up with a succession plan, and then of course a recession comes along and they're like, where can we cut costs? Oh, we can cut costs of the expensive people who've trained those lesser, paid people to do their job. So there I was, okay, what am I going to do looking for work? It's October, we're headed into the holiday season. Every company in the world is laying people off left and right. How am I going to make myself stand out? And after talking to people, what I realized is what I needed to do is make LinkedIn work for me. instead of me going out there looking for work. So I started posting every day on LinkedIn about Agile, Scrum, and product management, and showcasing my skills and what I can bring to a company as a product manager, making, being seen as an expert, helping people do whatever. And then, right, just like a product, right, you need product market fit to get your product into this place, right? You need to understand what your customers' needs are and how your product is going to solve that problem for them. It's no different for a job search, except you're the product. So I took my understanding of product management skills and said, I'm going to make myself an expert. I'm going to put myself out there, and then I'm going to research small number of companies and what they're looking for, tailor my need or tailor me and what I can do, my resume, to be the solution to the problem that they've outlined in their job description. Just like you do when you're a product manager and you're working with your marketing team, right, to sell a product. It's what problem are we solving in the marketplace? Right here, I position myself as the solution to the problem that they had.
Yeah. And that, like I said, walking the walk, that just shows that you have that mindset, that you get it, so to speak. So I really, appreciated hearing about that. And, a lot of the folks that I have on here that I interview tell this same story. Like, I couldn't find a job. Nobody would give me an interview. So I started posting content on LinkedIn. And this was my story too in 2020. I was trying to move from a startup to a large company, and they didn't think my experience they didn't take it seriously. No, you've never worked for a big corporation. No, you didn't have this, you didn't have that. And finally I just got so mad. I'm like, forget this. Like, I'm gonna just put my knowledge and skills and expertise out there on LinkedIn. And the job found me. So the same thing happened to you.
Exactly.
And tell us about how they found you. Like,
So,
what was all that circumstance?
right, because I was posting a lot and my posts were generating lots of conversation, LinkedIn, of course, promotes your content more. So it goes to a bigger and bigger audience. Pretty soon, someone who I had previously worked with saw some of my content, saw that green banner, and were like, oh, you're looking for work. This other colleague that you used to work with at, who's now at IQVIA, they just posted for a position. And that position is exactly what you were working on before. So I read it and I was like, wait a minute, this was my product. Of course it wasn't. They were creating a duplicate of my product in their own time, but I was like, this is perfect for me. It's going to be easy for me to talk about how I'm the solution for this because I already have the roadmap, right? So I was able to, let them know I was interested. The guy remembered me, put me in front of him, talked about the work I had done with him, because he used to be a competitor for this company as well. Of course, now we're all family, but talked about how we're doing the exact same thing, except using modern technology and actually having data scientists to go behind it. So,
Yeah. And, for a lot of us that are out there that are trying to do this, that are content creators, this is not an overnight magic wand.
no,
I mean, it takes months.
it took me, I believe, 5 weeks of posting every day before people started reaching out to me with job opportunities. And I didn't have to look anymore. The opportunities were now coming to me.
Yep.
But that's 5 weeks of right, spending more time writing content than just praying and spraying and sending your resume everywhere. Because reality, that doesn't work, right? You're not getting that product market fit or candidate market fit that you do when you're really selective and you let the right roles come to you.
And if you're out, and it's hard, like there are times when I've wanted to give up, but there are times when all the time I want to give up and stop doing this LinkedIn content. Like sometimes you feel like it's a hamster wheel, but this is where you have the community that supports each other, right? Because we're all in this together doing this content thing. But you can't get frustrated. You can't have expectations. You have to just kind of let go and things will eventually find you. But when you're out there putting your skills out there and your knowledge out there, recruiters and employers are all over LinkedIn. So they know who you are, and that's why they want to interview you as opposed to just a resume. They get to know you as a person before calling you in.
Yeah, I actually had people who didn't want to hire me, but brought me in for an interview because they wanted to talk about some of my posts.
That's
right?
interesting.
It is interesting, right? And they wanted to be that counterpoint to the post. And that's okay because it shows that they're like, it struck a nerve with them. It made them feel something, right? It brought out that emotion and they're just like, I've got to meet this person.
Yeah. And the thing is, you never know, somewhere down the road, because of that conversation you had with them, they might reach out 6 months, 10 months, whatever, 2 years from now. They might be like, oh, I remember that guy. Let me reach out and see if he's on the market. And it's like these things that you don't pay attention to, but it's all lining up.
Yeah, one of the jobs I turned down, the hiring manager initially had me in the no pile. And then some of my posts came across her feed on LinkedIn and she drew the connection and brought me in, moved me to the interview pile and brought me in. Right. It wasn't the right role for me. So I didn't take it, but that's how it, writing on LinkedIn can change things for you.
Amazing. So would you say that you have a brand? I'm putting you on the spot here.
That is putting me on the spot. And would I say I have a brand? I'd say my cat has a brand more than me.
Sure.
People seem to care more about the cat than me. Me, he's just a guy who's really pokes holes into a lot of the bad agile processes out there. But they really love the cat.
Yeah. So it softens the message a little bit.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I want to keep, okay, so we're at 6:05 Eastern. We're doing good here. I want to get into one of these other questions, and I think this was part of the Eventbrite write-up. When people go into organizations and they work with roles that are kind of way above their head, there's a lot of intimidation that comes into play. Whether it's your manager, you're intimidated, or your boss's boss, or some leader over here. And I know we talked about this a few weeks ago. How do you not be intimidated by people who are like, quote unquote, above you in the organization?
The one thing that I've learned about that is they're coming to me because they need my expertise and help with something that they are not a specialist in. They recognize that I have more knowledge in that area than they do, and they need my help. So for me, it's fulfilling that need of giving them the information that they need so that they could then go to stakeholders and leadership team and look good.
I think you mentioned, I'm trying to like jog my memory about our conversation a few weeks ago. You said something about how when people come to you, I hate to use hierarchical terms, right? But you're the product manager up here, and there are people that are beneath you in the org chart. When they have to come and speak to you and how intimidated they are to speak to you. Do you remember what you said? Talk to me about
Yeah,
how
so yeah. So the last two jobs I've had, I pretty much spent my first 30 to 45 days setting up one-on-ones with the people who are on the same level as me, the people who work at levels below me, right? So I'm setting up one-on-ones with all of the product owners, with the other product managers, with my stakeholders above me, but also with the developers and the scrum masters, the people who are delivering the work. And I'm meeting them on that one-on-one level and letting them get to know me on that one-on-one level. So it's not a working relationship, it's a people relationship.
Yeah, because it's challenging. I mean, there are people that at the end of the day, we're all humans. And I think COVID, for all of its challenges, brought us in literally into people's bedrooms, right? With the
Yeah.
cats in the background or the kids running around or whatever. So we see the humanness of the colleagues, especially the ones that, were sitting at the big desks with the suit and ties on and like super intimidating. Um, and it's almost like we're all humans again. And I feel like Zoom has kind of, I don't want to say it's not an equalizing, but I'm not as intimidated to talk to people on Zoom, regardless of what role they are, right? Because I see them in their flower shirt sitting in their basements. But if you were sitting behind a huge desk in a giant company, I might be a little nervous to talk to you.
Yeah. So, right, this role I'm at is fully remote.
Yeah.
When I was at my previous company and I was managing the project management office, right? And so I was part of that leadership team. I refused to take an office. I actually wanted a cubicle so that I could be out on the floor with all the people that I was working with so that they wouldn't see me as just that guy within the office. Right? They'd see me as someone approachable, that they could just come to my cubicle and start chatting with me or ask for help.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about that. Not everybody has the same mindset that you do. So, I mean, it is sometimes it's more difficult to get to know some people rather than others. But in all the times that we've talked, these are the things that I appreciate about you, because I want people to see that just because somebody is above you in an organization doesn't mean they're a scary person.
Yeah, I mean, we all have fears, we all have deliverables, we all have pressure on us to get stuff done. The more we can lean on each other, the better off we're all going to be.
All right, so before we open it to questions, I think I'll ask you this last one. This kind of goes back to sort of my post from this morning about how, well, maybe it's not even related to that, but we're all agilists at the end of the day. Scrum masters and agile coaches run their mouth on LinkedIn about Scrum and Agile nonstop. Um, but we're all in this together, and that's part of the reason why I brought you here, because I want people to interact with other roles. But what do you think, all because you've played all these roles, what do you think they all have in common in terms of like soft skills or skill sets? How can we relate to each other?
Uh, what they all have in common is if they can't communicate, if they can't ask questions, so you understand an answer or understand a need instead of answer, they're never going to succeed. And that's a product manager, a product owner, a scrum master, a developer, they all need to be able to ask questions to understand the need. They're just asking them to different people.
Right. And how hard is that? Because a lot of times we go in and we feel like we have to have all the answers. We have to prove ourselves. We have to justify our giant salary, whatever big title. But at the end of the day, simple things like listening is a skill that we all need to work on.
Yeah.
Asking questions, a skill we all need to work on.
It comes down to realizing what people ask for isn't necessarily what they need. Right? My job as a product manager isn't to have a customer tell me what they want. It's to understand what problem they're solving, because what they want and what they're solving for are rarely the same thing. When I'm defining things to a product owner, I need to be as clear as possible. But guess what? Those product owners and those scrum masters are really good at asking me questions to understand that need even more. And then they have to turn around and write it up so the developers can go and ask questions, right? And make sure that they understand what that need is, right? Because they may say, oh, we did that 2 years ago. We just haven't rolled it out yet. Right? But if they don't know what solution or what problem you're solving and you're just telling them what to do, you're going to miss that connection, because what you're telling them to do may not be what they've already solved for.
Yeah. And I think one of the hardest, I always go back because, Jamie, I was a teacher. I always go back to school. The behavior patterns that were kind of programmed into our head when we we're very young, it's like we can't escape them. I think a lot of people are afraid to ask questions. They're afraid to look dumb. They're afraid to get laughed at. I mean, not that in corporate America, people will laugh at you, but it brings you back to those moments where you had that incident in elementary school. And now it's like, nope, I'm not raising my hand ever again. Or, you raise your hand and you ask a question and the person's response is, frustration, right? And then you never ask a question again. But it's not about the other person's response. It's about what you put out there. So their response is on them. But I think one of the psychological safety, I always go back to it. It's just missing. And this is where, if we develop that, people will ask good questions and the problems will get solved.
Right. Or just start with the why.
Yeah.
Even if you don't know a good question to ask.
Mm-hmm.
Why do we need to do this? Why do we need to do this now? Right? Start there. And that answer you get will open up more questions. Yeah, I know it's, project management, 5 whys, whatever, but right, digging through the why really helps you get to the right solution.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's turn this over to the audience, Richard.
Right.
Let's see what they got for you. Because I do want to give people enough opportunity to ask whatever's on their mind. So go ahead and raise your hand. I'll call on people, and then Richard will kindly address whatever you have for him.
Okay, so Richard, first of all, amazing. I really enjoyed this conversation. I joined in the middle of it. I couldn't catch the first half, but I think I did get a good gist of it. So my question is, what is the one thing that you would want all these Agile coaches to understand about product management and how they can really support product management?
Great question.
Yeah, right. So a lot of times what I hear is product management isn't giving me the solution. They're not telling me what to do. Right? They're coming to me and they're asking me, can you solve for this? And that's really what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to take a customer problem and bring that to the product owners, the scrum masters, and the developers and say, can you come up with a solution for this problem? Our job should never be to tell, the Agile team what to do, how to do it. It should just be what problem we need to solve for.
And do you think the product managers sort of do tell them about it completely, or do you feel that that's one area which is still lacking and which we need to work on together?
I think there's a lot of places I've been at where the product managers are still solutioning.
Yeah.
Where, right, that's where, right, the Agile team needs to be able to step up and say, hey, you're solutioning. What is the problem that we need to solve for, not the solution?
I agree. Thank you, Richard.
You're welcome.
Great response. Thank you.
Yes, and this is where building personal trusting relationships comes into play, right? Because
Yeah.
I can then say that to you, Richard, and you won't get angry at me and start screaming at me, right? But the reality of it is, like, that does occur in organizations. So we have to build relationships with people before we can maybe give them that feedback. But it's really important.
It is. We actually saved a good 6 weeks on a product at my current company because I took a solution that a product owner had provided and said, let's not go to them with a solution. Let's just tell them what the customer need is. And one of the lead developers was able to say, oh, we already built that. Right? It's been in the software since version 2. So we didn't have to develop anything. It was ready to go and we could onboard the customer right away.
Awesome. Saving the company time and money.
Yep.
They love to hear that. What a great story. All right, let's go to Wilfredo. You're up next.
Thank you, Patty. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hi, how are you doing? One question, Richard, from your perspective, well, the feeling of a team player, of a team member feeling intimidated is one's feeling. So, of course, one's have to work in first trying to control that intimidation or that feeling. But from the perspective of the project manager, which tries to intimidate, because there are some that try to intimidate, what do you think that it is a good decompressing attitude from the team player to decompress that intention?
Yeah, so, right, it's not just a project manager, but a lot of people in management try the intimidation and the micromanagement, thinking that that's how they're going to get results. And you really have to say, listen, let me do the job you hired me to do. Right? You can, if you want someone without a brain to do it, hire someone without a brain. If you want someone who's going to bring a solution and work with you, then don't solution it for them. Don't tell them what to do. Ask them how we can solve it together. And right, yeah, right, you may get in trouble a little bit, but at the end of the day, right, your job is to deliver something of value to a customer. And if you're not, because someone's telling you what to do, is that the place you want to be?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Yeah, it is tough, right?
Yeah.
At what point do you still need to work there, right? Or is there a way you can get through to that person and give them the feedback? And that takes guts, baby steps, possibly.
No, I meant especially if you're a Scrum Master and you have to deal with that kind of attitudes and that kind of help the business transitioning.
Yeah, Scrum Master is an extremely hard role to deal with that because many stakeholders see you as someone who's a project manager, just taking orders and delivering those orders to the team. But that's not how you're going to deliver results from a team.
Thank you again.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, Omar, we'll call on you next.
Hello, everyone. I just want to, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Just want to say thank you for this. It was very humbling hearing, especially Richard's experience. And Patty, I'm not sure if you know Steph Ali. She has a Scrum Immersion program. That's how I got introduced to this. But my wife,
Yes.
yeah, she's been working with Steph maybe for like the last 2 years, and I've seen her work with Scrum Masters and working with a team, going through the Agile process, going through sprints. And she just thought it was a good idea for me to sit in on this. My background's in retirement. I don't have any, familiarity with this at all. But it's something that's very intriguing to me. But being that said, I was wondering, are there any certifications that you think would help you to stand out more in the field, or would just getting into like a program like Steph Colors with Scrum Immersion, getting that hands-on experience, would that be more beneficial, or would you suggest getting that certification?
Good question. All right,
So-
Richard, you tackle that.
Yeah. So the certification would be whatever role you want to apply for, right? Because that certification is going to show your current employer or future employer that that's the direction you want to take your career. Hopefully they don't see it as you become an expert from that 2-day certification, and they don't have those expectations for you, because all it really is a 2-day introduction to pique your interest and give you enough knowledge to determine whether or not that's what you want to pursue.
Yeah, and when you get experience, it gives you another depth to your understanding, where you can speak to being in the situations that are really challenging and how you overcame them. And those are things that you can't get from a certification class. So the certification is kind of the tip of the iceberg. And then it's your job to go out and find that experience in whatever way you can. All right, Tom, you are next down my list.
Thank you very much. So one of our big challenges that we're facing at the moment is technical debt. So with the product manager looking externally at the customer and looking at the future and new features and new ideas and new problems to solve, from perspective, how do you bring in and prioritize and filter into the workflow all the internal and the process, the cultural side of things, all the stuff the team needs to go faster and reduce impediments?
Yeah. So when a team comes to me and say, we have this technical debt that we need to solve, right? And we've been just dying to get this done. We really have to get this done. My question is, what is the value to the customer? Right? Explain how clearing up that technical debt will generate value for the customer. Because that's what I need to be able to sell that to my stakeholders and prioritize that, as opposed to working on a new feature. We have an example of that right now where, part of our product is written on architecture from 2012, right? We're constantly running into infrastructure issues. So we've had to prioritize redoing that and making it scalable because we want to onboard new customers. And we can't onboard new customers and new traffic on this whole technology. Right. So by being able to explain to the customers or the stakeholders, we need to do this work so that we can stabilize our platform and we can take on new content and bring in new URLs to contextualize so that we can meet our revenue targets, it becomes a much easier sell. But as a product manager and outward facing, I don't know those details. That's where I look to a product owner and a development lead to actually tell me that story as to what value it's going to bring.
Cool. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
That was a great answer. Again, why it's so important to bring a product, bring other people into the conversation here, because it gives you the perspective. Thank you, Richard.
You're welcome.
All right, let's go to the next person. Olawale.
Hi, Richard.
Hi, how are you?
Fine. Thank you very much for bringing this up, Patty. I've been a member of the family for a minute. It's always been a very insightful section, being part of this meeting. I mean, I'm always looking forward to it, to be honest. So like playing a TikTok on you on LinkedIn. So quick question, Richard. From product management perspective, what would be your recommendation on how to effectively manage customers that does not really have this clear view of the solution or the problem they're trying to vet, let me just put it that way. And they just know they needed something to improve their processes, but they just can't articulate it as what will be your best approach on
Yeah, I think we kind of touched on this a little earlier, but it's really using the 5 whys. Why do you need this? Right? Have them give you an answer. Well, what is that going to do for you? Right? And just drill down until you actually find the root of that problem they're trying to solve, through asking questions. Why this? Why now? What is it going to do? Get them talking, and they'll eventually figure out what that problem is they're solving and be able to articulate it to you in a way that you can tell it back to them, and they're like, yeah, that's what I need.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Sounds a lot like Agile coaching.
It is.
Right? Same thing, so helping somebody else solve a problem. So another thing we have in common here. All right, let's do one more question. We have one more hand up. So Lloyd, we'll give you an opportunity to ask, and then we'll wrap it up with Richard.
Thank you so much. I think I just came in leaving from an interview right away, and I just said, let me walk in here for us to share. I'm so much impressed with Richard's answers to all the questions, but there is, I just want to try, how do I manage like a team? Let's say the project manager or the product manager is like putting pressure over you, the Scrum Master, for a task to be done within your team. So the question is something, the answer I gave, I would say for me, is something I've made research over and over based on my experience of working with other project managers. The word macro management and micromanagement. I replace macro management with more of a coaching. Why micromanagement? I replace it with more of mentoring. I think these are two environments: the project management life cycle side and the agile mindset side. So if we replace those two words within the agile environment with the micromanagement and micromanagement with mentoring and coaching respectively, I think we will give value to the client within time box and budget. Because I tried that with in my present engagement. When I gave the answer to them, they were like amazed, but I didn't say I did something good, but just a run up over that. Then again, on the adding on the Richard's comment on the LinkedIn, what I usually do, like I'm just sharing an experience we all can learn. What I usually do on LinkedIn to connect, I usually go one-on-one. Let's say I try to read at the CEO's profile, I read at the recruiter's profile, or read at someone's profile. I go down, I read personal, then I write a person one-on-one to do like a follow-up on maybe interview, trying to look for a job. I have tried it several times. Each time I get lost from a job or my contract comes to an end. When I go on one-on-one, I usually have a job. So I think that is a method in which if we can like try to apply that in one way, than dropping our resumes all over, which we might not be called. So that was just my contribution. Thank you.
Yeah, great contribution. Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's all they say, it's not what you know, it's who you know, right? It's building relationships, and at some point something ends up coming in your path. So we've all experienced that. So thank you again, Richard, for coming here and sharing your wisdom and your journey with us. Are there any last things that you want to say before we log off to wrap it up?
Last thing I'm going to say, right? It doesn't matter what you're doing. Understand the value of what you're trying to bring. And that will help you have that focus to get it done and get it done right. If you can't articulate the value of what you're doing to yourself, whether it's applying for a specific job, reaching out to someone, posting a piece of content, commenting on a piece of content, trying to get someone to build something. If you can't articulate the value, you're not going to get anyone else behind you. So learn how to do that for yourself for just about anything you do, and you'll succeed at it.
That's great advice. 100%. Well, again, thank you so much for your time, Richard. Thank you all for coming. And, you know, as always, I clean up the video. I send it out on Monday with the email. So if you weren't here or you want to watch it again, you'll have this in your email inbox. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We'll see you in 2 weeks. For Tom Mullins, we'll be talking about his journey to become a product owner. And now that we've talked about product management, maybe how he sees himself fitting into that. So thank you, everybody, and we'll see you then.
Thanks, everyone.